Last time on the Skip and Josh podcast.
Let me ask you, is that a reverse jinx?
Well,
like, you're not supposed to talk about a no-hitter or a shutout, and you talk about it and the opposite happens. So here you said that he sucked and then he's been great ever since.
I don't think it could qualify as a reverse jinx, only because that's supposed to happen when you're like a fan of the team. So if like the Sharks were my team, then I would say that to jumpstart Martin Jones, like psychologically with the reverse jinx,
Okay.
Cosmically and psychologically. So it's not really a reverse jinx because I'm not a fan. But yeah, I did say he sucked. And then ever since I said that, he's played well and the Sharks are kind of on fire. Should I formally apologize to Martin Jones?
You could, but I mean, let's wait and see because they could lose in this round.
I'll apologize to Martin Jones if Don Cherry apologizes to the Carolina Hurricanes for calling them a bunch of jerks.
Don Cherry's never going to do that.
You're listening to the Skip and Josh podcast with Skip Sherman and Josh Obadia.
I'm Josh in Toronto.
And I'm Skip in Montreal.
In today's episode, NBA news,
Game of Thrones news,
and NHL news.
But first, handball news?
Okay, Skip, it's Sunday, May 19th, so you know what that means, right?
Well, I know for me and actually like millions of people worldwide, it's the final episode of Game of Thrones tonight. But for you, I don't know what the significance of tonight is, but...
Well, it's also Game 5 between the Sharks and the Blues.
Yes, that is true. Yeah. So you won't be watching Game of Thrones. I know you won't.
I won't be watching Game of Thrones.
We don't have to get into that. We've gone over it, and there's no point in talking about it. But I love it, and you don't. And there's a lot of like Game of Thrones backlash on the internet. I don't know if you don't go on social media that much, but there's a lot of people like, I don't watch and I don't care, and I don't know why all these people love the show. Like, there's a lot of people that are proud that they don't watch.
I should join that group.
Yeah, I thought you were part of it. So
when you play the Game of Thrones, you win or you die.
Has it been a good season?
No.
Okay.
I can get into the details of the whole show and everything, but I mean, it's fine. It's fine, and it's good because it's coming to an end, and we're going to finally see what happens. But the show is, I'm just going to give me 30 seconds to explain the show, but...
Can you do it in 15? Season
1 to 6 was like one show.
Mm-hmm.
That was a show. And season 7 and 8 is like a completely other show.
Mm-hmm.
It's been rushed. Everything was moving at a snail's pace for 6 seasons. All of a sudden, season 7 and season 8, everything's happening really fast. And it's because they have to finish, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what it is. We'll find out tonight what happens, And everybody will probably hate it tomorrow, right?
The only thing I know is Aaron Rodgers was on an episode for about 30 seconds.
Yeah, I didn't know he was on until, obviously, I didn't recognize him when he was in the show. But I saw the stuff the next day that he was in a scene, so...
The National Hockey League.
Okay, so look, I want to talk about the NHL playoffs, and I want to talk specifically about that hand pass that should have been disallowed. I'm not going to talk about the goal itself necessarily because even a blind person could see that goal should have been disallowed. So we're not going to sit here and debate whether the goal should have been disallowed or not. That is not the point of this conversation. What I do want to point out is a few things. If you look at the replay of the goal, so you'll notice that Timo Meier got credited with an assist on the goal.
Okay.
He's the one who passed it with his hand. So clearly his actions created the goal, because if he doesn't do that, then the goal doesn't happen. So that's proof enough right there that the goal should have been disallowed. But the other thing that was interesting, if you look at it, Gustav Nyquist, who's receiving the pass from Timo Meier, he's afraid to touch the puck. You can see that he's afraid to touch the puck because he knows that it was a hand pass. So he's afraid to touch it, but he does it anyway. And then when it gets to Carlson, he's not sure what to do with it because he also knows that he should not have the puck at this point. I mean, he shoots the puck anyway. And then I think when they show the players on the bench as the referees are discussing it, the players are all like, this goal isn't going to count. This goal isn't going to count.
Of course, they were so sure it wasn't going to count.
And so the Sharks themselves were stunned, I think, when it did count.
Yeah.
So, but here's the main thing I wanted to tell you. So after the game, of course, they asked Joe Thornton, they asked all these players, was it a hand pass? What did you think of that play? Yada, yada, yada. So the Blues, all the Blues players and the coaches, they answered exactly the way you'd expect them to answer.
Right.
But here was Here was Erik Karlsson's answer to a reporter's question when he was asked, was that a hand pass? I wrote it down. Here's the quote. "We weren't playing handball, were we? We were playing hockey. I think we deserved to win this game. At the end of the day, I think that neither team drew the shorter stick on any of the calls out there. It's a fair game." That, to me, is the most disgusting answer you could give to this question. I get he doesn't want to admit that they shouldn't have won the game.
But why does he mention the word handball?
Exactly. He's just incriminating himself even more.
Yeah, that's like, I mean, this is something that you will have heard about, but like not know intimate details of. You know, Diego Maradona, the hand of God.
Yes, I've seen the play.
Right. So, I mean, he heads in a goal. He heads in a goal, but off his hand. And then when the reporters interview him after the game, he's like, well, it was the hand of God. You know, meaning like, you know, but like that rubs it in every time, you know, every time that.
What about in the World Cup of Soccer? Was it 10 years ago? The French guy, Platini? Am I getting his name right?
Maybe, but that's more than 10 years ago.
Anyway, it hit like his arm or his forearm, and then it went to his teammate and they scored, and France ended up winning the World Cup.
I know what you're talking about. Platini is like going back into the 70s.
Sorry,
that's
not
why I was surprised.
Platini.
You're talking about Thierry Henry.
That's who I'm talking about.
But that was not in the World Cup. That was a World Cup qualifier against Ireland, and he clearly hit the ball with his hand down to his foot and scored. It was like everybody could see it. That goal today would be disallowed because they have review and that kind of stuff. But back to the Blues. So I know that everybody knows the goal shouldn't have counted, but it begs the question. Like, and I feel bad for the Blues because they got screwed and they should be up 3-1 in the series now instead of 2-2, right? But what do you think should happen when a ref blows a call? Like, what should have happened in this situation?
Well, first of all, I think every scoring play should be reviewed. Every scoring play should be reviewed.
Because like similar in the NFL.
And the coach shouldn't have to challenge it. Just every scoring play should be reviewed. Like at the office where they're reviewing all the goals, while these people are having this conversation and debating and arguing, the control center or the command center, whatever they call it, they could be reviewing this and they could have the answer for you in about 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's not even a question of time. Now they say that, because the play that would be reviewed wasn't the shot on goal. It was a pass. Yeah. But like, if you can review an offside, which happened, 60 seconds before a goal was scored, why can't you review this pass, which happened 2 seconds before a goal was scored?
Look, I've been saying this since last year, and I've heard a lot of the same sentiment on national media as what I'm about to tell you, and that the technology is evolved so much more. It's so much more ahead of where it's so much more ahead of the game. And like, we at home can review every single little play down to the millimeter. And it's like, we have to, we're at a crossroads now in sports. Like, we want to decide, like, do we want to review every play down to the millimeter? Are we going to look at the entire game on instant replay after the game and then decide the score? Is that where we're headed? Like, I don't know. I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just saying it's difficult. Like, the leagues are trying to figure out, like, how do we best use instant replay, and no one knows the right answer yet. But maybe, like what you're saying, scoring plays, right? But then would this hand pass be considered part of the scoring play? I don't know.
This wasn't even a situation like you described where you had to check if the skate blade was over the blue line or not.
It was obvious.
This was obvious. And this was obvious. This was obvious in real time to the players on the ice on both teams. So
how did the refs miss it? Did they come out and say why? Or like,
my only guess is like one of the ref who was down there may have been obstructed by a player or something. That's my only guess.
There's a lot of stuff going on in and around the crease, around the goal, and it is difficult sometimes to see. But they could have looked at that replay in 6 seconds and decided.
Anyway, I just want to go back to the quote. We weren't playing handball, were we? That so annoyed me when I heard him say that.
Yeah, it's a dirtbag thing to say.
Like, we weren't playing handball. No, you weren't playing handball. That wasn't the question that you were asked. And why would you even mention that? That just makes you look dumber.
So he knows it was a hand pass, right? Is that? I don't get his quote. I don't understand what he's alluding to, or like what is he trying to do. But anyway. But it has not been a good postseason for the NHL refs. It's been bad.
Well, actually, it's been a great postseason for the San Jose Sharks. This team has 9 lives. Like, they should have been eliminated in the first round, and they're still alive. This team's probably going to win the Stanley Cup, and something's going to happen in the next round that's going to be just as crazy as all these other things.
It's so true, actually. It's so true. Because that's so true. I just can't wrap my head around. Like, there's so many bad calls. Like, there's so many of these blatant bad calls. And then the one that bothered me the most is, like you said, okay, so the Sharks got handed to them this 5-minute power play where they scored 5 goals, right? 4 goals. 4. So the previous round, which we know about. But then what happened in the other series, right? Was it in the Carolina-Boston?
Well, I don't know what happened in that series.
No, there was another call.
You're thinking of San Jose, Colorado, where the guy was called offside.
You're right. San Jose, Colorado.
Yeah.
No, and it's like
San Jose was gifted they took away a Colorado goal that would have tied the game.
Yeah.
Because his skate blade was over the blue line and he was just trying to get on the bench. He wasn't even involved in the play.
No, but I just feel when it comes to all the penalties, the refs don't even know what to call anymore. They're like, oh my God, they looked at this on replay last time and look what happened. It's like, I think it's in their head, like, I don't know. I'm not sure where the league goes to make things better. But like you said, maybe every scoring play just needs to be reviewed. But the offside really bothers me. I don't like this challenging offsides. I just think it should be the way it is. If you go back like 50 years at a lot of the famous goals in hockey, how many do you think are going to be offside if they look at them now?
A bunch.
Who knows, right?
But you know what the annoying thing is about that Colorado one where I think it was Landeskog who was trying to get off the ice?
Yeah.
Why is the player bench, why does it spill into the zone? The player benches should be in the neutral zone area only.
You're 100% right. When I saw that play, I'm like, what the hell's going on in this rink? It reminds me like when my son played hockey when he was like 12 and 10 years old. We would sometimes go to different rinks and the door would open in the zone. So you always had to remind the kids, when you step on the ice, you got to go back. You know, got to go get yourself back on side. But, like when they're novice players, 8 years old, and they're still learning what offside is, it's not easy to explain sometimes.
The other thing I don't get is, if you look at all the rinks, it's a different amount of space from the blue line to the bench.
Yeah.
In every rink, it's different. And so, which I don't get because every rink is supposed to be the same dimension and every bench is supposed to be the same size. So I don't know. I don't know why like some benches spill into the zone even more than others.
Yeah, that's something that should in theory be easily fixed. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, I guess it all depends on how much space you have between the benches right at center ice.
Yeah, I mean the configuration of the buildings where the tunnels come, could be different, and they have to work around that. But look, maybe do you know a structural engineer we can get on the phone?
Listen, they can't refurbish all the buildings that have already been built, but it's just, way back in the day, the 2 player benches used to be on opposite sides of the ice, which to me makes a lot more sense because that way you have less, when players go back to the bench, they always bump into each other and then that starts stupid fights. And when they're on opposite sides of the ice, less of that used to happen. But of course, television wanted the player benches all on the same side so they could focus on the players' faces. And television gets what television wants because they pony up the money. And so now you have all this other controversy going on.
Because like in every game that my kid ever played in minor hockey, the benches were on opposite sides.
Right.
Except for one rink that we went to that was probably built in the 1940s. It was a barn with a wooden ceiling.
Yeah, I think I went to that game with you, actually.
Yeah. So that's hockey. I mean, look, can we talk about actual stuff? I mean, the Bruins are in the finals again.
Yeah, the Bruins make me sick.
Yeah, and the other series is going to go 7, right?
Yes, that's exactly what's going to happen.
So you don't like the Bruins. Is it just because of Marchand?
It's pretty much just because of him, yeah.
Because I like a lot of other players on their team. I like Bergeron. I like Pasternak.
Yeah, those guys are good.
Tuukka Rask, while I'm not a fan, you have to respect how he's played, You
ever see Tuukka Rask without his mask on? His eyes, it looks like, I don't know, he's always like this. I know no one can see me right now, but he's like, I don't know, it looks like someone startled him.
Yeah. I mean, Charlie McAvoy's a great player. They have a lot of great young players too, But Marchand, I mean, look, you don't follow Twitter, but the friend of the show, David Alter, wrote he's a correspondent now for the Boston Globe during the playoffs.
Oh, yes, he did that last year as well.
And he wrote a real scathing opinion about Brad Marchand, basically about how much of a dirtbag he is, and he pissed off a lot of people. The reaction on Twitter from from the Bruins fans was like, who the hell is this guy criticizing our team? You know, have been.
You should send me that link.
I will. I will.
And you can put it on our site if you want.
I will. All right. I don't have much more to say about hockey. To be honest, I haven't been watching very much of it.
All right. So let's talk about something else.
The National Basketball Association.
NBA draft lottery.
Sure.
Did you watch?
No. Did you?
Of course, yeah. I mean, look, the one thing about the NBA draft lottery is like if the NHL or the NFL did this, and actually they do this, they make it into like a 1 hour show.
The NHL does that exact thing.
Yeah, this was half an hour and it was very concise. It was very, very quick. Everything happened really quick. You know? There was no playing around. There was nothing. It was just, they just gave you they introduced, first of all the representatives from each team who was there.
Yeah.
When the representatives have nothing to do because the draft has already occurred.
Right.
The lottery's already occurred. The way they do it, there's no ping pong balls. It's just in an envelope.
Right.
Right. And so maybe the representatives were backstage or before it was televised, maybe the representatives had something to do. But at this point, they're just sitting there. So like Patrick Ewing is representing the Knicks. And different players, different old players or executives are representing each team. Mm-hmm. Actress Jamie Gertz, you know her?
I do.
She represented the Atlanta Hawks.
What does she have to do with them?
I believe she's a part owner of the team.
I see.
So that was interesting. And then
there was 1 year. There was 1 year where I think it was the Minnesota Timberwolves owner's daughter or something.
Yeah. There's always
and that girl
weird stuff like that.
Girl's smoking hot.
So the New Orleans Pelicans won the draft lottery. They only had a 6% chance going in, and they ended up with the number 1 pick. And now looks like Zion Williams is going to go to New Orleans. Or is he? I don't know. But seems all indications are that he will.
Yeah, I'm just interested to see if Anthony Davis still demands to be traded.
Yeah, I like it's because they won the lottery. It's interesting because the whole Anthony Davis situation. And maybe they can convince him to like not want to be traded and like stick around for a year, play with Zion, see how it goes. Or maybe they trade him for so much that like they make a team around Zion, you know? I don't know. But like you've heard the stuff this week about like how Zion hasn't signed a shoe deal or he doesn't have an agent yet.
Mm-hmm. Even if you have an agent, you could still go back to school.
Yeah.
But he's not going back to school.
No, I mean, you know why? You know why he's not going back to school? I'll give you 10 million reasons why he's not going back to school.
Of course.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to make $10 million this year. And why would you go to school and make 0 and risk actually getting injured? Imagine he goes back to school and gets injured and ends up making 0.
Of course. I wouldn't do it either. He can always go back to school whenever he wants if he wants to get a degree.
In 1 month, he's going to sign a contract for $10 million, you know?
Yeah.
So that's that. You know, whether he likes it or not, that's he's going to end up in New Orleans. I mean, maybe he can force New Orleans to, like I said, make some moves and get a better... The prospect, though, of having Anthony Davis and Zion with Drew Holiday, who's actually a really good player, is intriguing. You know, like they look like New Orleans could have something going. I feel bad for the Knicks, but not really, because they suck as an organization. So
I feel bad for every team in the NBA because, as we said on this show a year ago, you knew Golden State was going to win the title.
And they are.
So, I mean...
And they are.
So, like, why bother? Like, it doesn't matter who you acquire on your team, what trades you make, who you draft in the draft. Like, for the foreseeable future, Golden State is going to win the title. And even if they lose Kevin Durant in the offseason, they're still going to win the title next year.
Well, they are. I was about to say, like, without Kevin Durant, they could be beatable.
No,
right?
they're not. They're not.
But they are proving to everybody by destroying the Portland Trailblazers, like, that they don't need, like, they're fine without him.
They don't need him because you recall their first championship, they didn't have him and they were fine.
They were fine. I mean, they had a much deeper bench and they had a much deeper team that first year without Durant. And
by the way, if they lose Durant, they have money to go get a bench if they need a bench.
100%. They can go sign someone else.
Like, that acquisition, I never made any sense to me.
It's interesting how, well, also they signed DeMarcus Cousins this year. This guy's not even playing because he's injured.
Yeah, that guy, I think his career's done, to be honest.
That acquisition, like, became like a non-factor. But it just goes to show how, like, Durant sucks up all the oxygen on the court, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he demands the ball and things move through him. And then all of a sudden when he's not there, wow, Draymond Green is amazing, right?
Listen,
Steph Curry is an MVP again, right? Like, it just goes to show, like, when it goes through Durant, because there's only 5 players on the court, right? So when it's going through him, everybody has to take a back seat. But now all of a sudden they look like they're playing the freewheeling Blazers ball. Blazers. The freewheeling Warriors basketball that like we know and some people love. Like it's just share the ball, shoot threes, and they're deadly from that. Play great defense. Like I don't know, they're actually fun to watch again without Durant.
Yes, and I think the league would be better off if Durant was not on the Warriors.
I hope he goes to the Knicks, gets his wish, and then I hope he just plays out the rest of his career in anonymity because the Knicks are going to suck.
Who would wish to go to the Knicks? Why would that be anybody's wish?
There's all these reports that have come out that says Durant is like 99% done. He's going to the Knicks.
You know what? The Knicks and Durant deserve each other. Let him go there.
They do. They really do.
And you know what? On your way there, bring what's his name? Kyrie Irving along with you. You guys could be miserable together.
Well, look. They were on Oklahoma City together. They made it to the finals once. I mean, Durant had a sidekick in Westbrook, and they made it to the finals once. And then after that, they never could recapture anything, and they just kept getting worse every year. And then Durant left. So it's like Kyrie and Durant. It seems like they'd be made for each other. You know, two guys that are really strange characters. You know,
Oklahoma City could have had a powerhouse team if they just kept those three guys, Harden and Durant and Westbrook.
Harden was the biggest. Obviously the worst thing they ever did. They didn't want to pay him, so they traded him. But the problem is they didn't realize how good he was.
Huge mistake. Huge.
Yeah. I mean, most people in the league didn't realize how good he was. Harden was coming off the bench for them. He was a sixth man. And, you know, obviously the rest is history, right? Have you been watching any of the NBA playoffs at all or
I watched a bit of game 1 Toronto-Milwaukee.
Yeah. Okay.
That's it.
And how are things in Toronto? Like, I know everyone went crazy with the Raptors winning that, you know, beating the Sixers on that buzzer beater, but like now that they've lost the first 2 games, how are people feeling like about their chances, or they're not feeling good about it?
After that buzzer beater game, everyone was like, you know, that's like one of the top 3 plays in Toronto sports history. You know,
I agree with that.
You know, along with Jose Bautista and not better than Joe Carter, because Joe Carter was in the World Series.
Yeah.
But Jose Bautista was pretty much equal to it because it was roughly the same point in the playoffs as this was.
And there's no one alive to remember any consequential Leaf highlights.
Right, that's true. So,
I mean, the closest we can get to like an incredible Toronto highlight, and I can't pinpoint one specific play, but it's the 93 run with Gilmore. But it's not like I can think of one specific goal. But also, I'm not a huge Leafs fan, so probably there are some Leafs fans that could rattle off some crazy goals in that Stanley Cup run.
So everyone was like on cloud 9 after that buzzer beater win. Mm-hmm. And then even after the first loss, you could sort of sense the wind go out of everyone's sails. Yeah. And I mean, I didn't understand it because someone said at work, one coworker said to another coworker, "Oh yeah, the Raptors are done. They're down 1-0, and teams that lose game 1 in a series end up losing the series 70% of the time." And I said, How can you say that? How many times have the Raptors lost game 1 of a series and still won the series? Like, a lot.
Yeah,
I don't have the numbers in front of me.
They always lose game 1.
Exactly. So of all teams to say that, you shouldn't be saying that about the Raptors. I don't care. I don't have a horse in this race, so I don't really care. But
you mentioned to me that you have a buddy coming over to watch the game tonight. You told me, but are you talking about the hockey or the basketball?
No, basketball. Yes, friend of the show, Dave Littman is coming over to watch Game 3 tonight. Basketball.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look,
he's a big Raptors fan, so I'm a little nervous because if the Raptors lose, he might blame me.
Oh. Well, look, the old saying is, like, you haven't lost the series until you lose at home.
Exactly.
So, I mean, yeah, the Raptors lost both games, but they were in Milwaukee. That being said, if you want to win the series, you do have to win at least one game in Milwaukee. So they couldn't do that twice already. So
and they had a good chance to win game 1. They had the lead halfway through the fourth quarter and blew it.
I don't know what happened in game 2. Like, I don't know why they were so flat. I mean, what was clear to me in watching game 1 when they kind of faded in the fourth quarter is that Marc Gasol is almost useless. And the Bucks were basically daring him to shoot. They knew he wouldn't shoot, and they were playing off him, and then that just screws up everything. So I feel like the Raptors have a bit of a Marc Gasol problem in that, like, offensively he's non-existent. So I wouldn't be surprised if in Game 3 he has a little bit of lesser role, or they're gonna move him around and try to do stuff with him. I did have a point that I wanted to make about the NBA playoffs.
Okay, so did I.
I love the fact that right now, on all the teams that are left, the little schools, and when I mean little schools, I'm talking about really little schools, are being extremely well represented. First of all, you have Giannis, who didn't go to college, so right off the bat, you have that's there. You have the best player in the Raptors, Kawhi Leonard, who went to San Diego State. And then even better is, Steph Curry went to Davidson. That everybody knows. But Portland, their backcourt, who is like the best backcourt in the NBA, is Damian Lillard, Weber State, and then CJ McCollum. The team that he was on, the team that upset Duke, the Lehigh team that upset Duke in early in the tournament. That was CJ McCollum. That was CJ McCollum's team, which is pretty incredible. Like, to see all these little schools so well represented.
Well, good for all those guys. And my observation of the NBA playoffs is that every NBA player is a big whiner. It's almost getting to be worse than soccer.
Actually, you don't listen to the Bill Simmons podcast?
No, I don't.
But he's been on this topic for a while, like since the start of the playoffs, and especially in the Houston Golden State series when it really reached like epic proportions. The amount of whining and complaining about every single call by players and coaches, it's making the game, it's ruining the game.
It's like no NBA player has ever committed a foul. Not one of them.
No, and never missed a shot unless they were fouled. Right? If they miss a shot, it's like they had to have been fouled.
Right? Exactly.
I mean, it's gotten to the point where it's really bad. I mean, with Harden and the Rockets, it was worse because Harden complains about everything. He wants to get every single call. And then you have the Warriors who, I mean, you don't see them complaining that much, but Draymond Green certainly brings a lot of drama to the games on both ends of the court. That's all I've got. I mean, NBA, draft lottery, NHL, Game of Thrones. What else is there?
Major League Baseball.
Have you been following any baseball like at all?
Yeah, a little bit, but
the Red Sox really righted the ship and they've gotten things going, no?
The Yankees also. The Red Sox and the Yankees have started to turn things around. You knew that was going to happen, especially, the Yankees actually deserve a lot more credit because they still have like 18 guys on the disabled list, or sorry, the injured list, I should say.
You're right, the injured list.
So it's quite impressive that they've been able to do what they've done. There are still, like, as you said on the last episode, everyone's hitting home runs and pitchers' ERAs are through the roof. I don't know if
baseball's at a weird turning point statistically in that there's no contact anymore, right?
No.
It's strikeouts and home runs.
Yeah.
There's very little actual bats hitting balls during games. There's tons of walks. So there's a lot that has to do with why the game's longer, because there's a lot of taking of pitches and stretching out the at-bats, and to get favorable pitches to hit. Yeah, and then, the number of home runs hit so far this year is, I think, it's the most ever.
You heard about the Joey Gallo stat, right?
Which is what?
He's the first player ever in his career to get to 100 home runs before he got to 100 singles.
Oh my God, that's huge.
And I think because he's passed 100 home runs like about a week ago, and I don't think he has 100 singles yet in his career.
It's like there's always has to be someone who's the first to reach like such a weird stat, but he won't be the last.
Probably not. Not.
He won't be the last. What's the reaction in Toronto with Vlad Jr.? Are people excited still? I mean, he got off to a little bit of a slow start, but then he hit a couple homers this week.
Ever since they moved him to the number 2 spot in the batting order, he's been hitting much better. And I never understood this. Like, you can look back in the history and see like a player's stats when he bats first or second or third or fourth or whatever. And it's remarkable to me how sometimes there's a huge discrepancy for the same player, depending on where in the order he hits. Because after the first inning, it doesn't even matter anymore. And yet somehow, ever since they put him in the second spot in the order, that he's been doing much better.
there's a thing on Twitter. I'm going to try to post it on our website if I can. There's this side-by-side comparison of Vlad Sr. and Vlad Jr. Their swing, hitting a home run. I even showed it to my wife. It is unbelievable how it's the exact same swing.
It should. It stands to make sense that they would have a similar swing because who did he learn to hit from?
Exactly, but he holds the bat high in the air before the pitch is coming, and then the swing is like it's incredible to watch side by side to see the similarity.
Send me that link as well, please.
It's a clone. What?
Send me that link as well, please.
It's a clone. It's an incredible. The swing is the same.
I've given you a lot of homework on this episode. You have to send me 2 links.
I know. I will.
Did you see Ian Kinsler telling his own fans to F off?
No.
So Ian Kinsler's been having a bad season with San Diego this year. He's hitting under 200, I think.
He's been doing worse and worse every year.
There's a lot of guys like Brian Dozier's hitting under 200. Anyway, so he hit a very important, I don't know if it was a 3-run homer or 2-run homer or something, like just a couple days ago. And when he first of all, he flips the bat as he's leaving the batter's box.
Right.
Which is fine. I don't care. Then after he touches home plate, he puts his hands up in the air and 2 or 3 times he says as loud as you could possibly say, F you, F you. And he's looking at the fans.
Because they're all mad. It's like he's basically saying, don't criticize me.
Well, because they were booing him, and I think he was getting criticism on Twitter. And then I think the next day, or maybe 2 days later, MLB, I don't know if they fined him or something. They reprimanded him in some way, shape, or form. I'm not sure how.
Look, any fan who pays the ticket price to get into a game can boo anybody the hell they want.
Yeah, I agree.
Their team or the other team.
Yes.
And Ian Kinsler can say whatever he wants, but as a professional baseball player, you have to know that if you tell your own fans to F off, there could be some repercussions.
Exactly.
Exactly. Either by your team, by the league, whatever, something. You're not going to get off scot-free.
Anyway, it was just interesting.
Before we sign off, remember, you can listen and subscribe to new and archived episodes of the Skip and Josh podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Play, iHeartRadio, and of course, Spotify. If you listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review. We would love to hear from you via email, skipandjoshshow@gmail.com, via Twitter @skipandjosh, or by liking and following our Facebook page. As always, you can get all the links to everything I just talked about on our website, skipandjosh.com.
We leave you with this.
So, Josh, I already mentioned that, we mentioned at the top of the show that tonight's the Game of Thrones finale.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch the series finale of The Big Bang Theory this week?
No, I forgot it was even on.
Do you watch that show at all?
No,
or?
do you?
No, I watch it when I'm on an airplane.
Okay.
But because I fly often, I've seen many episodes on airplanes here and there, and I mean, it's not the kind of show where you really need to keep track of what's going on. It's the kind of show that I laugh at, and I think it's fairly funny when I do catch an episode here and there. But it's been on for 12 years. That's insane.
That's a good length for a show. I think Seinfeld was on, 10, 11 years?
Yeah, something like that.
After that, it's time to go.
Yeah. So I did watch the finale. It was 2 episodes, and it was well done, and I enjoyed the ending.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
now I want to ask you something else. Are you keeping track of this YouTube war between Tati and James?
Okay, so first of all, no. And second of all, I'd never even heard those names until yesterday.
But wait, you actually know what I'm talking about?
Only because I listened to another podcast that talked about it. Otherwise, I wouldn't even know who they are.
Me too. I listened to another podcast and I'm like, what the hell are they talking about? So I went to my daughter and I'm like, who's Hattie and James and what's going on? And then Selena explained me the whole thing about their whole history and everything that's going on. So I actually threw that out there with hoping that you would say, what the hell are you talking about? And the fact that you do know what this is actually shocking.
I don't know what the feud is about. I just
know.
No,
but you've heard the names.
I've heard the names once and that's it.
All right. That's all I got.
Speaking of television shows that will not be producing any more episodes, I finally finished watching Breaking Bad.
Oh, how did you like the ending?
So now you can talk, you can say whatever you want now. But
I was so scared to you were like, what's gonna happen in the last season? I don't understand. And I just wanted to tell you, Hank's gonna find out. Hank's gonna find out what's going on. And like, I couldn't tell you that. So did you like the way it ended? Or?
Well, first of all, I have to say that I found, so there were 6 seasons, right, altogether?
Yeah.
So it was just like what you said about Game of Thrones. Seasons 1 through 5 was one show, and season 6 was completely different.
Oh, they just, season 6, it's like they want to wrap it up.
And things happened very quickly in season 6, you know, like you said, similar to Game of Thrones, season 1 through 5, things kind of moved along, not at a snail's pace, but they moved along. And then season 6, all of a sudden, like a million things are happening every episode.
Yeah.
And I certainly wasn't expecting the ending that actually happened.
Yeah.
And spoiler alert, in case the listeners have not watched the show,
I think we're safe because that show ended like 6 years ago.
Okay, so like everyone dies. Like everyone dies.
It's crazy, right?
Like, what's the point of that?
I know. I'm scared that that's what's going to happen in Game of Thrones tonight. I think everyone could just die.
Well, isn't that what's supposed to happen? Everyone except for one person dies. Isn't that the whole?
It might be, yeah, but we're not sure who's going to be left.
Anyway, so everyone dies in Crazy.
So what's your next binge? What's your next show?
I don't know. Maybe Better Call Saul. Maybe, I don't know. I'm afraid to get into a new show.
I've heard a lot of good things about Better Call Saul, and that if you like Breaking Bad, then you like it. But it's a totally different type of show. It's much more of a comedy.
Okay,
right?
I don't know. In news that no one cares about, well, actually, I shouldn't say that. In news that everyone seems to care about, except me, the Rolling Stones are going on tour.
Okay, next.
Exactly.
I saw them on tour in like 1989 at the Olympic Stadium. Worst concert I ever saw in my life. And not their fault that the Olympic Stadium is so bad. I literally couldn't hear a thing. I could have been anywhere. I could have been anywhere with some music playing through speakers that I can hardly hear. I couldn't even tell what was going on. All right, the Rolling Stones. I'll talk to you next week.
Yes, have a great week.